Before the Klondike Gold Rush, Yukon First Nations people had their run of the upper Yukon River Valley. There were very few other people around. What happened is almost overnight, literally tens of thousands of people descended right into the homelands of these First Nations folks. Many of them withdrew. They moved into the mountains. They moved further away to the north, to the east, to the west, and to the south, and they stayed away from the gold rush. But others also found ways to participate. They worked as packers. They worked as guides. They hunted meat and sold it to the gold miners. So they found as many ways as they could to participate when they wanted to. But of course, the Klondike completely disrupted life in the north, and it took generations for them to recover.
The Tr'ondëk Hwëch'in live with the impacts of this event every day. In spite of ongoing revitalization of our culture and our institutions, we continue to live with the intergenerational and ongoing impacts of our recent history.
The question of how the Indigenous population of Yukon were treated during the gold rush, it's rather a tangled one. They were, of course, damaged because their lands were occupied and there were diseases. On the other hand, some of them were employed during the gold rush. And don't forget that Indigenous people were the co-discoverers of gold in the first place. They weren't nothing during the gold rush at all, but they were certainly pushed aside.
But the Tr'ondëk Hwëch'in are still here. This is our home. We have maintained its integrity for thousands of years, and we will continue to care for these lands in spite of the disruption of the gold rush. The gold rush does not define us. It is a moment in time in our long history. It was intense and had profound impacts on our people, but is a small chapter in our story. We have lived on in relationship with our lands for all time. The land itself determines how we live. The Tr'ondëk Hwëch'in respect the land and follow its patterns and the ways of the animals. We are caribou and salmon people, so we're mobile. We move with purpose through our lands and respond to the animals and plants and other materials that we need. The Tr'ondëk Hwëch'in have cared for this territory for generations. We lived in a good way and did everything we could to ensure that our children and grandchildren would be able to live lives as fulfilling as ours. When newcomers came into our country, we were met with people who understood the world in profoundly different ways than we did. We were open to new ideas, and we were also obligated to share our knowledge and our ways with others. We helped them survive on our lands because that is our way. It must have been quite astonishing for our people to meet others who basically tried to force a way of living that was ultimately in conflict with the land itself. Newcomers did not live easily with our land. For instance, they built permanent town sites with far too many people in one space. They built an economy that emphasized taking with no giving back. This had profound impacts on our lands and our ways. These were people who did not exhibit any humility or self-control. The lack of recognition of our way of life and the arrogance of the newcomers seeking to impose foreign ways of being in our homeland gradually eroded our culture and identity. The groundwork for the systematic undermining of our society and the occupation of our land was established in these early years. The impacts on our sense of identity and our confidence in our place in the world cannot be overstated.